are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. It's no surprise that many gun owners don't fess up when pollsters ask them if they have firearms, but the numbers of those fibbing could be huge. Most polls show that about 30% of Americans say they own guns, but it could actually be twice that, according to a new study. Congress is on their summer break, but Republicans investigating the so-called Biden crime family are still working, and today they will hear from business partner Devon Archer. Investigative journalist John Solomon has 8 questions he would ask. The New York Times is confirming what we all know. Donald Trump is crushing 2024 opponents Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence. And Elon Musk continues to go his own way. While other tech firms are running from San Francisco as fast as they can, Musk says the social media platform, now known as X, is staying put. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Well, folks, good evening. Welcome to Stinchfield. We now have confirmation Joe Biden lied. What a surprise, right? Well, Hunter Biden's close confidant and business partner, Devon Archer, testified behind closed doors to the United States Congress today. And he basically confirmed everything that I have been telling you on this program over the last few weeks. I wouldn't call his testimony to be a bombshell by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say it serves as confirmation. Confirmation, first and foremost, that Joe Biden is the big guy. So when they talk about splitting all these profits and giving percentages of businesses out to the big guy, Devon Archer confirmed Joe Biden is most certainly the big guy. He also confirmed that Hunter Biden, Devon Archer, other associates of Hunter, put Joe Biden on the phone at least 20 times to talk to international business executives. This proves that when Joe Biden says that he didn't talk to his son about business, that was an absolute lie. And it's important because that lie now seems like Joe Biden was a very big part of this pay-to-play scheme. This is Andy Biggs, the congressman from Arizona, Republican. He was inside the hearing room today.
Devon Archer himself said that was an implication of who the big guy is. I mean, and Archer talked about the big guy and how Hunter Biden always said, we need to talk to my guy. We need to see when my guy's going to be here and those types of things.
He talked about selling the brand, the Biden brand, and making sure that they could use Joe Biden in his position of power to help move things along for these international executives. We had told you for a long time now that the allegation was, and Devon Archer confirmed this in his testimony, that the CEO of Burisma brought Hunter Biden on board because he believed the brand would be helpful. That's a quote. We also learned that he put great pressure on Hunter Biden and others to have the United States play a role in getting rid of this prosecutor that was looking into Burisma. Devon Archer confirmed all that to be true, something that we've told you. So again, another confirmation here. So what happens? The Democrats respond like this. This is a flustered Dan Goldman after the committee meeting.
The president's statement saying that he never talked to any of Hunter Biden's business associates. Clearly he talked, whether it's about the weather or whatever, but he said specifically that he's never talked to them. Doesn't this contradict him?
I don't know what his comment is, and if we're going to, well, I don't think that's what he said. He never said that he has never spoken to anyone. He said that he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings. If he says hello to someone that he sees his son with, Well, is he supposed to say, "Hi, son"? Oh, no, I'm not going to say hello to the other people at the table?
Just to remind Dan Goldman of what Joe Biden's comments were about, I have never talked to my son about business. Let's roll this little trip down memory lane.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses. I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters, and I've never discussed them. I don't discuss business with my son. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
It turns out, according to Devin Archer, 20 times he was on the phone talking business with those business executives, meaning he wasn't just talking to his son about business. He was talking about these potential business partners, current international business partners. He was involved in the business, even as vice president of the United States. So Goldman continues to respond like this.
Like most of the time, now President Biden didn't even know who the people he was at dinner. He was just asked to say hello, and he would, talk about the way he described it several times. They asked over and over and over. He described what the weather was, what's going on your end. The witness was very, very consistent that none of those conversations ever had to do with any business dealings or transactions. They were purely what he called casual conversations.
This is actually a very big development. The big development is that a Democrat, you see right there, just acknowledged that, one, Joe Biden has talked to his son about business, and two, that Joe Biden was on the phone with these international executives. Whether he was talking about the weather or whether he was talking about deposits into their many LLC companies, it doesn't really matter. See, what these phone calls are about when Hunter gets his dad on the phone as a sitting vice president and then later running for president, it's about showing the potential client, the potential business deal, that he has access to his father and get his father on the phone like that. That is very powerful when you are dealing in international business and want the power and prestige that they believe the Biden family could bring them. And as vice president, certainly Joe Biden could bring some power to him. Look, he got the prosecutor fired in Ukraine. Scott Perry, who's a Republican, responded to the idea of casual conversation. Listen to him.
Even in a casual conversation, Congressman, there is a great deal of influence to be wielded by the sitting vice president of the United States.
Absolutely, Trace. And let's remember what we're talking about is influence peddling. So if that's what they're agreeing to and admitting to, that's indeed a problem.
Well, clearly, you can show you have influence with the highest levels of the federal government if you're getting your father, who's a sitting vice president, on the phone. That's what this was all about. Everyone knows it. The Democrats know it. Certainly Republicans know it. President Trump knows it. Joe Biden knows it. Hunter Biden knows it. The media knows it. So let's explain what's going to happen now. The sad reality is the media is going to ignore this story today. They will cover it up, which then means the general public, just like the Hunter Biden laptop before the election, the general public will not learn about this story either. They'll not get the intricate details that Devin Archer laid out the case, that Joe Biden is the big guy because he had direct knowledge of that, and Joe Biden played an integral role in recruiting all of these money plays that the Biden team was pushing for. Now, they will also call Devin Archer unreliable because he is a convicted felon. He's now facing jail time for this fraud that he was convicted of, millions of dollars in fraud. But that doesn't make any sense because Devin Archer wouldn't have any motivation to speak badly about the Bidens when it's the Biden DOJ, the Biden Bureau of Prisons, that are getting ready to lock him up. If anything, he would want favor with a Justice Department that is totally weaponized against anyone who crosses the Bidens and the Democrats. So this idea that he's not credible because he's a felon just doesn't play. If anything, he's putting himself out on the line. How do we know this? Over the weekend, the Department of Justice writes a letter to the judge in the Devin Archer case demanding that she set a date for Devin Archer to appear in prison, to show up for his sentence and to check himself into prison, urging the Bureau of Prisons to come up with that date. Now, why would you send a letter on a Saturday? The Department of Justice doesn't do anything on a Saturday. The only reason you would do that is to intimidate this witness, is to intimidate Devin Archer. James Comer had this to say.
I don't know if this is a coincidence, Maria, or if this is another example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice, but I can tell you this, the lengths to which the Biden legal team has gone to try to intimidate our witnesses, to coordinate with the Department of Justice, and to certainly coordinate with the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to encourage people not to cooperate with our investigation, to encourage banks not to turn over bank records, to encourage Treasury not to let us have access to those suspicious activity reports. It's very troubling, and I believe that this is another violation of the law. This is obstruction of justice.
Well, I've got a buddy who told me something very important when it comes to government, and I want all of you to listen to me very, very carefully, that there are no such thing as coincidences in Washington, D.C. There aren't any such thing as coincidences in state houses across the country either, but especially in D.C. You know who said that? Well, of course, he's former deputy assistant to President Trump and author of Government Gangsters, Real America's Voice contributor. Kash Patel is here. No coincidences, are there, Kash?
None whatsoever, except me and you appearing on your show to talk about the truth.
So let's take this from the newest information first. Devin Archer, I said, not really bombshell, but confirmation. Everything I'm hearing coming out of this hearing confirmed all of the things we've been talking about. John Solomon's been talking about what we've been learning about the Biden scheme. It seems like he confirmed.
Yeah, look, Real America's Voice has been all over this, your program, John, and so many others. And you're right. The fake news has covered none of it. They will not cover. And I looked just before I got on your show, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, not one single word about Devin Archer's testimony today. That tells you everything you need to know. That tells you how powerful Devin Archer's testimony was. Because if they could have found a way to tweak it, just ask Dan Goldman how that went for him, they would have done that. But they know this evidence is so damning, the only thing they can do is ignore it. And like you said, these documents, and James Comer and company has put this information out for months and months and months, but it was always a right-wing conspiracy theory. Then they bring the guy in who's Hunter Biden's best friend, consulting with him from day one, knows Daddy Biden from day one, and he's on the phone calls. I mean, you want to talk about playing the videotape to the bank robbery with the guy without a ski mask? It just happened.
You know, how arrogant is Joe Biden to make this claim that I've never spoken to my son about business? You could literally make the claim, of course I talked to my son about business. I talked to my son about everything. And it wouldn't mean that he's guilty of any crime. Right. But now that he said, no, he hasn't, it literally proves that he lied to the American public about that.
No, and the word you chose is the exact word in the English language, arrogance. Arrogance. These government gangsters think they will never get caught. The legal system does not apply to them. This DOJ and FBI will do nothing to them because it's their boss and Garland and Wray want to stay in power. It's his arrogance. Look, he's old and forgets everything. You know what he doesn't forget? The criminal conduct of his son and how to cover it up. Isn't that a coincidence? And every time he's asked about it in that video montage you played at the beginning of the show, everyone in America should watch that because that's all the proof you need. He wasn't mixing up dates. He wasn't mispronouncing names. He wasn't getting countries confused in his head. He was specifically flat out denying that he had ever had anything to do with any of Hunter Biden's business dealings overseas. And that just blew up in his face. The president of the United States just lied to the world. Well, he lied repeatedly. He's just been caught. And let's see if there are any consequences.
All right. And all of this has great consequences for the United States of America when it comes to national security. Let me play another clip from Andy Biggs, the Republican from Arizona, being asked just about that. Cut 9.
Do you think the President of the United States is compromised based on Archer's testimony?
I think so. And we'll continue to do our due diligence and our research.
Kash Patel, do you think Joe Biden is compromised?
Yeah, look. I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican in the White House when it comes to national security. I want our commander-in-chief to succeed. But this is just another example of, look, the Democrats and the radical left-wing media got together and said, Trump's in bed with Russia. Trump is compromised. Trump is the one committing illegal acts. Isn't it funny coincidence that it ends up being the Democrats that do the very same thing they made up about Donald Trump. And let's just put this in context for viewership real quick. What if we were in the White House during our Trump presidency and Don Jr. or Eric were sitting on the board of an energy company and they were consulting with China or Ukraine and they had Dad call? Who cares what Dad said on the phone call? That's a flex. That's intimidation. That's bribery. That's coercion. That is illegal in 17 different forms. But the two-tier system of justice rolls on because it's Hunter Biden and his dad, Joe.
And we know if it was Eric or Don Jr., they'd already be in prison right now with this justice system if they ever did anything like that. All right, let me just have some fun with you. I want to go back in time to get your response. Now, with everything coming out, with Joe Biden, the pay-to-play schemes, the contact with foreign business owners and executives. Roll cut 10. This is Biden back in 2019.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
You know there's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong. You know that. But you keep asking me these questions. It's okay. You're doing what you have to do. But I'm not worried about it. Look, the American public knows me.
All right, so he's talking about Hunter Biden and a business deal. So your response, and boy, talk about the arrogance right here. Not one little bit, Cash.
Well, that's just it. He knows the media was going to cover for him like they did there because that guy didn't challenge him with. How about the videotape? How about the audio tape? How about the FBI's recording and confidential human source information, which we are just still learning about, that they've been on this for 5+ years and have managed to wormhole it because they wanted Joe Biden to win the presidency. All of this information comes out, in my opinion, if you impeach not Biden, but Wray and Garland, because the two-tier system of justice exists because of these individuals, and the cover-up for Joe Biden exist because they, Garland and Wray, have kept the documentation and witnesses from Congress and the American public. All roads will lead to Joe Biden. We know he's corrupt, and his son and him committed bribery and coercion and international fraud. But the people that covered it up, Garland and Wray, are the bigger criminals, and they are attacking everyday Americans and Donald Trump for having the audacity to tell the truth. And that's what we need to get to the heart of.
This is why I want all three of them impeached, and I know that would be a big deal, but you and I talked about that last week. Last question for you, real quick. You think Joe Biden's worried about any of this?
No, that's the problem with the system he has created and the people he's put around him and the media. He thinks he's going to sail into 2024-25 and get reelected. He still doesn't think his kid did anything wrong because in his mind, he knows he can lie about it over and over again and the media will cover it. And that's what we have to harp on, that our current commander in chief in the 21st century of the United States of America has repeatedly lied to the world over. And thus we, the United States of America, are weakened everywhere in the world, in China, in Russia, in Iraq, in Ukraine, down south of the border, the drug trade, the cartels, the economy, everything. All goes back to the commander in chief. And Joe Biden is the biggest fraud in U.S. history.
Yeah, that is the flat truth from Kash Patel. I appreciate you, buddy, as always, coming on today. Thank you.
Thanks
and don't forget the book, Government Gangsters. I urge everyone to go out and get it, Kash.
Thanks, Rand. Have a great night.
Absolutely. You too. All right, folks. Retaliation against those who question the COVID-19 narrative, okay? It didn't just stop at censorship or shadow bans. Now they are targeting your money. Dr. Mercola, one of the premier holistic doctors, will join us next. Wait till you hear what they did to this man. That's next. right, folks, I want you to stay tuned because we are working on getting Dr. Mercola here. Again, one of the premier holistic doctors who is now absolutely being targeted by those on the left about his views towards the China virus, the COVID vaccine, and, of course, the pharmaceutical industry. While we work on that, I want to get to another very, very big story. I don't know if you saw these hearings that went down in Washington recently over the transgender issues. The left has claimed to be for so long the champion of women. But this transgender mania agenda totally throws the idea that they're championing women out the window. So UPenn swimmer Paula Scanlon, remember, University of Pennsylvania, that's where this Leah Thomas, we all know her, the man who pretends to be a woman and swims against women and beats them in just about every race. That's where she swam. She changed in the locker rooms there. Well, this is Paula Scanlon talking about just that. Cut to.
The destruction of free speech. Today, any discussion maintaining the sanctity of women's spaces is labeled transphobic, bigoted, and hateful. What's bigoted and hateful is the discrimination against women and the efforts to erase women and our equal opportunities, dignity, and safe spaces.
All right, she did a great job in this hearing. The left totally tried to push back against her, but I love when their idiocy hangs them out to dry. I'm going to play you a little interaction between Democrat Steve Cohen, who's about to get schooled by Ms. Scanlon. Watch Steve Cohen, cut 8.
Transgender people have been around for a long time, and they have rights, and they need to be respected. I read Ms. Scanlon's testimony. I wasn't here to hear it, and I think Penn didn't deal with your situation like they could have and should have in putting up some type of different barriers in the women's area of the locker room, but that's another issue. But things should be dealt with in a different way. This is an easy way for people to try to get points. Pick on a minority group that is the most minority and least understood in our country.
Oh, give me a break. Put up barriers in a women's locker room? So, again, Scanlon literally roasts him, as my 14-year-old son would say.
And we just heard my Democrat colleague, Mr. Cohen, say that your circumstance could have been fully resolved if we'd have just had some barriers up in the women's showers. Do you think that that's a sufficient way to resolve what we're dealing with here?
I think by Representative Cohen admitting that we need barriers acknowledges there are biological differences between men and women. And by acknowledging that we need to have private spaces that are separate from each other, why can't we just use the locker rooms that we've always used?
Seems like a very, very good point. That if you acknowledge that you need barriers in between them, that there's something different between the two of them. Like one's a man and one's a woman. It is literally the most common sense idea out there, yet Democrats cannot grasp it. If I had a daughter, which I don't want her in a locker room with men. And I certainly don't want my son in the women's locker room. It's literally that simple. Well, joining me now to talk about all of this is one of the founders of Gays Against Groomers. You know him as Conservative Ant on Instagram and so many other social media platforms. Anthony Raimondi is with us. Conservative Ant. It's great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, too.
What do you make of this hearing and the people that spoke out against this and really giving it back to many of the Democrats in the room?
Look, I give her so much credit for standing up for women because I could have sworn not too long ago there was a bunch of women wearing pink hats that were screaming for women's rights, and they've all completely disappeared. And now we just have men wanting to take over women's spaces, and now we're the bigots or they're the bigots because they don't want men in their locker rooms. It's insanity to me.
All right, let me roll this cut from Paula Scanlon. This gets to the very heart of it. You know, I talk about being a dad. Can you imagine this young lady's father when he realizes she's got to change in a locker room in front of Leah Thomas, cut 1?
My teammates and I were forced to undress in the presence of Leah, a 6'4" tall, biological male, fully intact with male genitalia, 18 times per week. Some girls opted to change in bathroom stalls, and others used the family bathroom to avoid this. When we tried to voice our concerns to the athletic department, we were told that Leah's swimming and being in our locker room was a non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services to attempt to re-educate us to become comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male.
And they want them to go through psychological services. The university administrators are the ones that need psychological services.
Yeah, right when she said that, I was like, wait a minute. They're the ones that need psychological services. Here's something funny. So I ended up looking up before the show how many trans teens actually are suicidal or are connected to suicide. It actually tells you when you look it up that it's the suicide risks are low. It's 73% now if they transition. So instead of dealing with the mental health issues that they might have from wanting to transition, now you can't even Google the statistics of the suicide rate or the mental health issues of those who have transitioned already. They're saying that they're okay.
So let me play a clip from, there was a detransitioner. So this is someone that transitions, then comes back because they realized, and I've talked to some of these people, I feel so badly for them. Their lives have been changed forever. Their bodies mutilated forever. They even admit they don't feel like a person anymore because of this. Roll cut 4, this is detransitioner Chloe Cole.
The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone.
Anthony, what's going on here? What is the motivation of the left with all of this craziness?
You know, I wish there was a black and white answer for it. It's not. It's literally the indoctrination that's been happening with our society from the left. And, you know, I'm an 80s baby. I couldn't imagine being a little boy in this day and age and then having my parents at like 7 or 8 years old or a teacher tell me in kindergarten or first grade, hey, it's okay. If you want to, you can transition to a woman. Would I be a woman today and then have all kinds of mental health issues? Absolutely. That's what's happening right now. And I encourage parents to at least ask the questions that they need to ask to their health providers, which it's hard to trust, but teachers, what did you talk to with my kids? And then really make sure that these are decisions that they want for their children, because we are seeing a lot of detransitioners now have so many lifelong, not only mental issues, but health issues that nobody wants to talk about.
All right, I'm going to ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I think it could help parents out there that have kids going through this. You are a gay man. When you were younger, do you know you're gay? Do you think you want to be a woman? Are you confused about all of this? Do you really think you could have easily been sucked into this idea that, hey, you need to be a woman and go through mutilation surgery?
Yeah, look, I grew up in a Catholic conservative family. My parents did not raise me to be gay or straight or one way or the other. I went through a lot of trials and tribulations in my own life to try to figure that out for myself. Nobody pushed anything on me. It's something that happens to not be a choice. I wanted to get married and have kids, and I wanted to do all that. I had every imagination in my mind to have that, but that just wasn't in the cards for me. So I had to accept myself. But I did that on my own. I did that through growing. I did that through my teens and my 20s, and I accepted myself. But had it been a different time, I might, like I said, I might be a woman now. Who knows?
Which, to think of the life-changing damage that would do, right? And where you are today, I mean, that would have been an absolute nightmare. This is detransitioner Chloe Cole again talking about that nightmare. Cut 5.
When I was 13, I had my first testosterone injection. This caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster.
I don't want anybody to ever have to make that claim that they feel like a monster, but the other person that I interviewed that went through the same thing used the exact same term, Anthony.
You know, that when she said that, it like ripped my heart in half, because it is so destructive on your mental health to have this happening. And if that's not an eye opener for parents or for anybody, for any reasonable, common sense human being, then they are the monsters. And listen, your sexual identity, it's not a clothing line. It's something that is in you that you need to deal with yourself. And when you are of age to make those decisions on your own, fine, figure that out. But I am glad to be a man. I'm so blessed to have a family that was supportive, but I wouldn't change that for the world. Yeah. And if I was younger, I can't say the same because I'm a grown man now. Yeah. So it's important.
That's a message that I think more people need to absolutely 100% hear. Anthony Raimondo, Conservative Ant. I urge everyone to follow you on Instagram. It's great stuff, great content. I appreciate you coming on, as always.
I appreciate it.
All right, absolutely. You know, here's another issue for you folks. Think about this. California now has juvie hall, okay, up to 25 years old, because they say that these juvenile delinquent kids who are committing crimes can't decide between right and wrong up to 25 years old. So you got to put them in juvie hall up to 25. Yet they want the same kids who want to change from being a boy to a girl or a girl to a boy at 14 years old to be able to make that decision on themselves. So you can't figure out how to be a criminal until you're 25, but you can figure out what gender you want to be at 12, 13, or 14. This is the hypocrisy of the left that gets exposed every single time. All right, folks, one thing I take very seriously is my health. I try to eat right, but with my schedule, it's not always easy. I know I need fruits and vegetables, like 6 cups a day, but that's nearly impossible for me to do. So I now use Field of Greens. I know that people who eat this stuff live longer, they have less cancer, and this is why I go to Field of Greens. And unlike other fruits and vegetable supplements, each specific fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens is medically selected to support specific functions like heart health, liver and kidney health, immune system, and metabolism. Field of Greens works fast, and if you're like me, you'll feel healthier, have more energy, your skin will look healthier, and it can help you lose weight. But the biggest benefit is the better health promise. Take Field of Greens, and if at your next doctor visit, your doctor doesn't say something like, whatever you're doing, keep it up, it's working, return Field of Greens for a full refund. So to help you get started, I got you 15% off your first order. Get another 10% off when you subscribe for reoccurring orders. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use the promo code GRANT. That's fieldofgreens.com, promo code GRANT. All right, coming up, retaliation against those who question the COVID-19 narrative didn't just stop at censorship or shadow bans. They're now targeting your money. I will tell you all about that next. Well, folks, anybody that is concerned about their health and likes the idea of living healthy knows a gentleman by the name of Joseph Mercola. He is one of the premier doctors when it comes to holistic health. He's been an outspoken critic of the China virus and the United States' response to it, the vaccine. In fact, he wrote a book called The Truth About COVID-19. That led the New York Times to label him as a, quote, super spreader of misinformation. Misinformation's a bogus term because everything that Dr. Mercola had spread along the way has now turned out to be true, at least according to my research. We were supposed to have him on for an interview. Unfortunately, some technical difficulties will stop us from happening. But what happened to Dr. Mercola, every single one of you needs to understand. Chase Bank had closed down his accounts. Closed them down. I want you to read this tweet from Dr. Mercola. It says, quote, Chase Bank has shut down our business bank accounts, along with the accounts of my CEO and CFO, as well as their family members, including spouse and child. They've refused to provide any reason for doing so. The oldest account has been active for 18 years. Why would Chase Bank close down those accounts? We were going to ask Dr. Mercola about that today. Unfortunately, we're not able to do so, but I have some idea of why they may do this. See, Dr. Mercola has been an outspoken critic of the pharmaceutical companies. He actually loves the idea of holistic health, using natural remedies, eating healthy, living a clean life. Well, the FDA hates that. So he becomes enemy number one for saying things like this about aspirin.
It's like they discredited all of us with the COVID. They discredited aspirin. Why? Because it was a threat to their drugs that they were putting out, which is the NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Aspirin is essentially free, and these other drugs cost a lot more. Aspirin has been shown to decrease COVID deaths by 50%.
One of the things you have to understand about these doctors that spoke out about COVID, they are very well informed. They are all critical thinkers, whether you talk about Dr. Peter McCullough, whether you talk about Simone Gold, whether you talk about Dr. Barkey out in California, whether you talk about Dr. Mercola or Robert Malone. All of these doctors use critical thinking skills to say something is not right with this. I'm sure this comment from Dr. Mercola had something to do with him being canceled. Cut 5.
They showed us during this period how effective they are. And this is a trial run. This was not the main game. This was practice, and they're fine tuning their program. It seems pretty clear to me that it's obvious that they're going to launch an even worse crisis in the future. It's inevitable.
That is something many people are predicting, including myself. It looks like over and over again. When they can't control you, or when we start to wake up, we being the masses, thanks to programs like this, thanks to voices like all of yours out there helping me spread the message, when the masses start to wake up, they got to shut you down. They got to control you. So Dr. Mercola isn't the only doctor to have his bank accounts shut down. There's another doctor named Dr. Syed Haider. He believes this is all about the same thing that China uses, a social credit system. Listen to this, cut 3.
So right now, we basically have a social credit score in the United States of America, but it's kind of this passive-aggressive secret system, right? Like, we don't talk about it. No one knows about it. Whereas in China, you know exactly what you can and can't do, right? So people can choose to follow all the rules and stay in the lane and, be able to access all their normal services and not get canceled all over the place. Here, we don't have that, right? We're trying to convince people, oh, it's the land of the free and, nothing's changed. But it's actually, everything has changed.
But do you understand the social credit system doesn't work unless you get banks like Chase and Bank of America and all the big financial institutions on board? Well, how do you get them on board? You shame them into being on board. And the only way to shame them into being on board is if you get the mainstream media on board to push all of your bogus propaganda, the nonsense. And then you deal in fear. Because the masses, the sheep in America, respond to fear just like the elites want them to respond to fear. They hunker down and they follow the rules. And once you have rule followers that aren't critically thinking, well, then you own them. That's how you institute a social credit system, and sadly, we're getting very close to that. Think about this centralized digital currency that the United States government wants to push. Why? Because they can track your finances. Every single move you make, what you spend your money on, they will be able to track it. And if you're spending your money on things that they don't like, they'll shut you down too. To think that Dr. Mercola, one of the most popular websites in the country, huge business with his supplements and everything else like that, Chase Bank shut him down. Chase Bank should be ashamed of themselves for shutting down a guy like this. It isn't right, and it seems to me to be very un-American. All right, folks, we talk about all kinds of stuff. I talk about wanting to stay healthy. One of the ways to do this is to have an air purifier in your home. An air purifier like your life depends on it, because it just might. Canadian wildfire smoke has blanketed the United States, reaching as far as our southern states. And with wildfire season in full swing nationwide, toxic smoke is threatening our health. Well, EnviroCleanse is a military-grade air purification system that's now available for your home. EnviroCleanse is specifically designed to wipe out airborne chemicals and viruses known to cause illness, allergies, and difficulty breathing. Even toxic gases and particles found in wildfire smoke are no match for EnviroCleanse. This is how you keep your family healthy, and this is why the Department of Defense chooses EnviroCleanse to protect their air on board our Navy ships. And only EnviroCleanse comes with a free professional air quality monitor, so you know your family's breathing purified air, or your money back. So here's what you do. Visit ekpure.com and use code word NEWS for 10% off your EnviroCleanse air purification unit. You will also receive the free air quality monitor plus fast free shipping. That's $150 savings. Here's what you do. Visit ekpure.com, use the code word NEWS, ekpure.com, code word NEWS. All right, folks, why is the Barbie movie the left's new favorite movie? Those details next. All right, I'm curious, folks, and I want all of you to be very honest with me. How many of you went to see the Barbie movie? How many of you went to see Sound of Freedom? I hope you went to see Sound of Freedom over Barbie, but if you went to see Barbie, that's fine. I think there's a learning experience to be had here from taking your kids to the Barbie movie. I'm not going to see it because I don't want to give my money to woke Hollywood, and clearly I believe the Barbie movie is about the quiet and sometimes not so quiet indoctrination of our kids into the, one, LGBTQ ultra gay agenda, and two, the woke agenda on top of that. So I'm not going to see it, but a friend of mine did go and see it. And I trust her opinion on things. And she left saying, yes, it was very, very woke. She said her daughters didn't even really love the movie. And it was clear that the movie was meant to emasculate men, disparage men, break them down, ruin them. And when I looked at all the clips I could find on this, it became very clear to me that that was pretty true. 10 times in this movie, patriarchy is mentioned. In a Barbie movie? Really? Come on, give me a break. And then there's this nonsense.
What you meant with all of those little quips, but I'm picking up on some sort of entendre, which appears to be double. And I would just like to inform you, I do not have a vagina. And he does not have a penis. We don't have genitals.
That's okay. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I have all the genitals.
He does not have genitals. That's okay. That's all right. That's no problem. We don't care. Oh, maybe you're trans, you're this, you're that. See, it's meant to be like, a lot of this is sophomoric humor. I mean, let's face it, they were dolls. There's no private parts on the dolls, all right? As a 8-year-old boy, believe me, I checked. That's what all 8-year-old boys do, right, on the Barbies and the Kens. But there's not. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think the reaction of the construction workers saying, well, that's okay, is meant to quietly infuse this idea that not having genders, not having private parts, chopping them off, covering them up, whatever it may be, is all okay. Funny, maybe, but I don't think there's coincidences. We've talked about this earlier in the show. I believe all of this is normalizing the ultra LGBTQ Alphabet City agenda. Roll the next cut.
Oh, looks like this beach was a little too much beach for you, Ken. If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now, Ken. I'll beach off with you any day, Ken. Hold my ice cream, Ken. All right, Ken, you're on. Let's beach off.
Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first.
I will beach both of you off at the same time. But you don't even know how to beat yourself off. How are you going to beach both of us off? It doesn't make sense.
Ken?
Why are you getting emotional? You're going to beach both of us off?
Nobody's going to beach anyone off.
I'm the first to acknowledge to all of you, anybody that knows me knows this is true. I love sophomoric humor. I love pushing the edge, even with sexual humor. But I didn't find that funny. Now, I'm sure some 14-year-old boys might think that's real funny and they're laughing. But it's not about that. See, it's about normalizing this behavior. The beach off. Come on. They can't get more creative than that? I guess they don't need to, because that's the part where they hammer it over your head. So I say, take your kids to this movie. If your daughter's dying to go to it, take them. But then talk to them about it, right? Use it as a playbook into the left to get them to see what's really going on with all of this, and prepare them for when they leave the nest. See, if you hide them from all of this and don't talk to them, when they get out in the real world, they will not be prepared for this. This scene summed it up. If you don't think the movie was woke, you just need to see this one scene. Roll it.
You represent everything wrong with our culture. Sexualized capitalism, unrealistic physical ideals.
No. You're describing something stereotypical. Barbie is so much more than that.
Look at yourself.
Well, I am technically stereotypical Barbie.
You set the feminist movement back 50 years. You destroyed girls' innate sense of worth, and you are killing the planet with your glorification of rampant consumerism.
No, I'm supposed to help you and make you happy and powerful.
Oh, I am powerful. And until you showed up here and declared yourself Barbie, I hadn't thought about you in years, you fascist.
You fascist. Well, what's that related to? Fascist, of course, is related to every Trump supporter out there that must just be, toxic masculinity and all of that stuff. That scene summed it up. I like the old Barbie, all right? And here's a little tip for all of you women out there. If someone describes you as being Barbie, take it as a compliment. Barbie was hot, okay? That's the bottom line. She was, which is why I'm so upset that this radio host, Don Geronimo, in Washington, D.C., got fired over these comments. Roll that clip.
Hey, look, Barbie's here. Hi, Barbie girl. Hi there. I'm guessing she's a cheerleader. Oh, hey, there's that that you thought said tight.
Yeah, I screamed tight when she was
I think she's a sportscaster at Channel 9.
Yeah.
Or Channel 7.
Yeah, she's familiar.
I thought she was a cheerleader.
Now, folks, was that so bad? Seriously. Called her Barbie. She is. She's a sportscaster at the local station in Washington. The Washington Redskins, now Commanders, barred iHeartMedia from covering training camp now because of those comments. iHeartMedia fired this Don Geronimo for calling her Barbie and a chick. Listen, if I walk by, anybody out there can call me Ken, okay? They can call me a dude. They can call me a jock. They can call me whatever you want. Who cares? Lighten up. We are so hypersensitive. I feel bad for this Don Geronimo. And Washington Commanders, you ought to be called the Washington Pansies. Because this hypersensitivity and political correctness will start losing you games. Because this is going to transfer to the players who are going to act like pansies, just like the administration of the Washington Redskins. Washington Pansies. All right, folks, listen to me. Coming up after the break, our word salad queen, Kamala Harris, is back at it again with a take on criminal justice reform. That's next.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. It's no surprise that many gun owners don't fess up when pollsters ask them if they have firearms, but the numbers of those fibbing could be huge. Most polls show that about 30% of Americans say they own guns, but it could actually be twice that, according to a new study. Congress is on their summer break, but Republicans investigating the so-called Biden crime family are still working, and today they will hear from business partner Devin Archer. Investigative journalist John Solomon has 8 questions he would ask. The New York Times is confirming what we all know. Donald Trump is crushing 2024 opponents Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence. And Elon Musk continues to go his own way. While other tech firms are running from San Francisco as fast as they can, Musk says the social media platform, now known as X, is staying put. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.